Hello, everybody.
Hello.
So we're here to answer any questions that you might have. Just remember, we have the live chat feed going on YouTube, so feel free to post any questions. Our TA over here is going to be reading some out as they come along. Way over here.
Yeah, get in here, Chris.
Hi, everyone.
And then we'll also answer some of the questions that were already posted on the discussion board on the edX platform. We talk a little bit about some things that are coming up in the course that you might want to pay attention to, especially starting in week 2. So that being said, anything you want to say?
Welcome to week 2. I hope you're all out watching the eclipse with your sun protection, your eyewear, but
only with the safety glasses.
Only the safety glasses. But this week is going to be a busy week, and we're going to start on a brand new project. So we're going to spend most of the time here talking about that. But we'll get to some of the early questions, some of the smaller questions here first that we've seen at the discussion board.
Yes, first of all, it's been great to see a lot of you active on the discussion boards. So continue to do that. We've really enjoyed seeing all the different posts from around the world, seeing where all of you guys are coming from. That's awesome. This is the first time we're running the class, and so we're kind of learning as we're going as well. So we appreciate all of your patience. So we are currently finishing up week 1, going into week 2. There's still time for the ID verification deadline. So that's coming up in a few days, I think on Friday. So if you're interested in actually getting credit for this class, make sure you ID verify so that you get a grade in the class. And then at the end of the class, you can determine whether you actually want ASU credit or not. So please pay attention to that. We've also been getting a lot of questions related to just, do I need to be a student from ASU in order to get credit, or how things transfer? So first of all, no, you don't have to be officially enrolled in any kind of university or anything like that. You just have to ID verify. And then when you get a passing grade in the class, you can choose whether or not you actually want credit for. As far as transferring credit, that has a lot to do with well, the school that you're transferring into. So if there's a specific school that you're interested in, you might want to ask about it before you actually pay for the credit, just in case.
And you have 1 year after the class is ended to decide if you want to transfer that credit. So if you spend the $49 to be ID verified, and we still have a lot of these questions out in the open of which universities will accept it, you don't have to actually pay the fee for the transferable credits until for 1 year period after this class is over. So we've got a lot of time to figure that out. And it might be worth it if you are seriously going to be enrolling in a university to do the ID verification. And then we're still working on some answers of if you have to first be enrolled at ASU, get the credit at ASU, and then transfer it out to another university. So we're still looking into some of those questions. But it might be worthwhile if you are thinking about becoming a new university student next year.
Yeah, and obviously we'd love to have you at ASU. So come on out if that's something that you're interested in. Some of our other questions from the discussion board. So we had how an engineer becomes a leader. So that's a really interesting question. Big question. So really, I think there's 2 different ways you can think of leadership. You can think of leadership as far as leading a new technological development, in which case it's really about mastering your topic. So for instance, if you are going to be the world-renowned leader in aerodynamics, okay, whatever that might look like, then maybe you go on for a PhD in aerospace engineering and study a topic, and then do a lot of research with that, and just keep learning more and more until you are the world expert in that category. There's also some things to say about as a leadership position, maybe on a local or even a larger governmental level. The fact is, you're going to be learning skills in this class about making tough decisions when there's competing trade-offs, the skills that engineers use to solve problems that can be useful in a variety of different fields. So with an engineering degree, you can go into law, you can go into public policy, you can do a lot of these things, and some of the skills are transferable. So if you're interested in thinking of it that way, problem-solving skills are transferable in a variety of different ways, and maybe even in leadership positions that you might attain.
Exactly. And so what we're trying to do in this course is we're going to try and give you guys skills. So we're not trying to introduce you to a bunch of different types of engineering. We're trying to give you the skills, and those can be technical skills, because you'll see that we'll do some programming and we'll do some different computer softwares, but also skills that are considered soft skills. And these soft skills are things that everyone blows off because they think it's not important. And it really is the basis of what makes you a great employee, a great engineer, and what does then eventually become a great leader. So this is a really interesting question of how an engineer becomes a leader. And what happens is, if you want to take more of a logistical approach of if you're thinking leadership in the terms of management, when you start working as an engineer, you usually spend about 5 to 10 years of your early career being a technical guide. So you're working as design engineers, as test engineers on the very specific details of the actual designs. That doesn't mean that you're going to be there forever. After about 10 years, usually companies will start asking, where do you want to go in your career? And you can either stay in a very technical position where you are a subject matter expert in those kinds of an area, or that's where you can start veering off into management and become a leadership position where you are overseeing now teams of people and you are going to be in charge of large scale projects. So engineers can become management. That's not something that's only business people and business majors. You'll have those skills where we're talking about presentation, communication, documentation, all of these different kinds of active learning exercises that people have to do, and you have to learn as an adult as you grow up. Those are going to be the skills that people are going to look for in a leader, and those are what we're hoping that you'll get a little taste for here in our course.
Yeah, and the follow-up question to that was how we study in our graduation with engineering so that we'll meet our academic needs as well as instructional need. Basically, how do we prepare ourselves for future careers like in research or as an inventor? And the following question is, what is the impact of our GPA of a job in industry? So Allie actually has a lot of experience in industry, and maybe you could talk a little bit about that.
Yes, I can talk first about to the GPA question. And it's a question all of our students ask is how important is the GPA? Because probably about 10 to 15 years ago, the GPA was everything. And so if you're hearing from the generation before you, giving you advice saying your GPA is everything, you need to have the highest as possible, 4.0 is the best you can do. Obviously, you want to get as great grades as possible, but that is not currently in this day and age what the employers are really looking for. So we have over 100 different employers every year that come out to ASU to look at our engineers specifically. And we ask them all the time, what are they looking for in their engineers? And it's never, we need the high GPAs. They always say we want the experience. We want kids who are involved. We want the engagement. And so they're looking for students that have decent grades. They do want good grades. You don't want to be a 2.0 student. But if you're thinking about the difference between a 3.3 and a 3.6 is going to get you a job, don't panic about it, because they're not looking that specifically at your grades. They're looking to see, are you a great, well-rounded student who is understanding big concepts in your courses and you're doing a good job? But also, are you then getting outside of the classroom and applying what you know? Because when you're an engineer in industry, you don't have a textbook with the answers in the back. There's no answer key from the professor. And so we want to be able to take what knowledge we give you, and you guys have to go out and be able to apply that. So how important is your GPA in getting a job? It is definitely important to have good grades. You want to try and stay within the A's and the B's range, but don't kill yourself if you get a C. Everybody gets a C. Don't worry about it here and there. You want to make sure you go more for experience and application of what you're doing to be able to show that you are passionate and you are involved in this industry.
And that's one of the reasons why we try to incorporate an e-portfolio into this class. So the skills that you're learning here can be marketable. There are things that you may want to show a potential employer. And as you continue to develop those, you want to document those. So an e-portfolio is one way to do that. Yeah, so getting involved in a lot of different things, showing that you can apply your experiences to real problems is really important as well. And then, you can't do engineering by just studying a textbook. You've got to apply it. And so we want this to be a hands-on class. We want you to try and tackle problems even now as best as you can. And as you learn more skills, as you go through more classes, you basically learn different tools and allow yourself to solve different kinds of problems as you kind of specialize in your technical discipline. So the basic techniques of problem solving are very transferable between disciplines, but then you start talking about individual problems that you're trying to solve, and you learn new skills to do that.
Excellent answer. Some of these other questions.
We have a question from the chat, actually.
Excellent.
Sergio asks, he's graduated as an engineer in 2011. How can this course help him, and why is this a good course for him to take?
Well, Sergio, you graduated in 2011. Maybe it's a good refresher for the basics of what you learned. Did it say graduated in engineering?
Yeah.
So graduating in engineering, maybe this will allow you to kind of refocus yourself on problem solving. A lot of times when you get out into industry, you get really focused on your specific topic, and you learn to kind of solve the problems in very similar ways, and you can sometimes get into a rut. Maybe this class will help you broaden your understanding of problems that can be solved and how to approach different problem solving.
And if anything else, yeah, from what I've learned of being involved in these courses, as I worked in industry, now in academia, I've learned that the things that you do every day and that you know as an employee how to do, you don't seem to think that they're very important details or that they are worthwhile life skills, and they are. And so what this course, if you stick around and stick with us throughout this course, what you'll notice is the things that you already probably know how to do in your day-to-day work are actually very important skills of either project management, team leadership, entrepreneurship. And so we want to be able to show you that you can highlight those in different ways to be able to make yourself then a more marketable employee as you progress through your career. So it is meant to be a freshman level introduction class to what is engineering and how do we design things. We probably won't teach you too much new concepts that you don't already know if you're an experienced engineer, but we hope that we can point out the magnitude of all of the information you already have, and that you can start realizing that your potential as an engineer can grow even greater because you have all of this knowledge and skills that you should be able to market.
And then the other thing to think about is, yes, you're a part of a company, but maybe there's a problem that you're interested in solving that's different than where you currently work. And so maybe you can start identifying opportunities outside of your job that you want to start applying for. And maybe, like Ali mentioned, you apply your entrepreneurial mindset and try and solve those problems in new and different ways. And you never know where that can lead as well.
It's a great question, Sergio, because we know we have a lot of experienced engineers through the discussion boards on this class. We hope you guys stick around and that you do kind of partake in it and enjoy it. And it might teach you something here or there about some new technology, but if anything else, it'll show you that sometimes the piece that you work on at your day-to-day job has bigger impact on everybody else, and that you have to be able to recognize everybody else's needs as well to be able to be really successful with your piece. And
we look forward to learning a lot about all your background and what you can bring here as well. So feel free to share your experiences as you're going through, because we have a lot of different levels coming into this class.
All right, Chris, do we have any other questions on the chat room or anything?
We have one more question that just says, I have finished the turret that I've had to make. What do I need to do now?
I have finished the what?
The turret.
The turret. Do you know what that is? Does he mean the paper tower?
Maybe.
If this respondent is referring to, I've completed the paper tower, now what? The answer is, give yourself a pat on the back, I think. So the paper tower was just an initial week one, let's goof around and let's have some fun with a little bit of a challenge for you and see how that works. This week, we're going to start our next project for the next 4 weeks, that everything that you do will have a purpose and go towards the project. That was just kind of a goofy week one. We know we're getting started. Type of activity for you. So don't worry about it. Take a picture of it and challenge your kids someday about it, but you don't have to save it and you don't have to submit anything about that.
Yeah, it is just a design challenge. Your next design challenge, though, is something that we want you to apply the skills that you're learning. So starting in week 2, you learned a little bit about the engineering design process. Now we want to start looking at each of those steps in the design process and applying them to a project of your own choosing. You may not have realized this, but actually in the week 1 discussion board about what interests you might have within engineering, that's really the start of our Devils project. So we're going to be looking at a problem that you want to tackle, and you're going to be coming up with a conceptual design for that problem, starting with first identifying what the problem actually is. So we really encourage you to, as you're going through these discussion boards, start bouncing ideas off of each other. You can learn a lot through brainstorming with other people, but also you can learn, is the problem that you are trying to solve actually a problem for more than just you or your close friends? And so ask questions, ask, clarifying information from other students from around the world. Is this a problem that you face, or is this something worth trying to solve?
And definitely start thinking about, we've seen a lot of posts of what interests you, of people that are posting in fitness, people that are posting in energy, and we're glad that interests you. And so I want you to take it one step further now and say, not only does this interest me, but what are the current issues with this area, with this industry? So that if you are super really interested in agriculture, and maybe you are someone who has a lot of experience with farming, what are the current issues that you deal with right now? And then we want to take those issues and be able to pull out possibly some innovative solutions and some opportunities for you to be able to design and come up with a conceptual idea. So this is going to lead us into what we're calling our Developing Value and Innovating Limitless Solutions project, what we're going to call here the Devils Project, because we are the Arizona State Sun Devils. So we're going to kind of spend probably the rest of this video chat talking about the Devils Project and explain how the weeks are going to progress, because you'll find that there's assignments that you submit, and then you'll find that there's project work that you don't. So I'm going to let Ben explain that. I have to run to my class. I have a class starting here in a few minutes, but hopefully we'll be doing a live chat again in a couple of weeks. And if there's any clarifications, again, in the discussion boards, if this is something that you guys want is more live chats, let us know. We're here. We've got the webcams, and we can do them at any time. All right. So you got it,
Thanks,
Ben?
Allie. Yep.
Cool. Thanks.
All right, so a little bit about the Devils Project. Like we said, it's really about solving a problem that you find interesting. Now, this may not be a solution to one of the 14 engineering grand challenges, because those are huge, huge problems, but maybe you can find your own little niche, one piece of the problem that you might be interested in. Ali also mentioned a little bit about going back and forth and talking about what are the root issues. There was a really interesting discussion that I was starting to get a part of, talking about keyboards and what are the other options for importing data into a device, whatever that might be, a computer, a cell phone, whatever it might be. So those are the kinds of discussions I want you to think about. What are the root issues, and then maybe look at different ways of solving them. And you never know what you might end up with. So as Ali said, there's a couple different things to look at as far as deliverables. So the first deliverable that you're going to have is a problem definition. So if we're not solving the right problem from the beginning, we want to know that right away. So this is something that you're going to submit. This involves a problem definition statement, as well as the requirements, what your solution will need to do, as well as criteria, which is, how are we going to know whether it's a good solution or not. And there's lecture videos which discuss, what is the difference between a criteria and a requirement? How can we develop problem statements based on customer needs? Those are all week 2 topics. And so at the end of week 2, you're going to be submitting that first assignment. Throughout these next 5 weeks, or really 4 weeks now, like Ali said, there's going to be some project work. Stay up to date with the project work. Okay, everything builds on each other. If you leave it off till next week, you're going to have double the work to do that next week. So do everything as it comes up. Try and get as much done as you can every single week, so that by the end, really, you're just summarizing what you've been working on. And we have details about all those assignments on the course shell. So be paying attention to those details. At the end, the other assignment that you're going to be turning in is a presentation. You're not going to have to record yourself actually giving the presentation, but you're going to be developing a set of slides that describe the problem that you're trying to solve, talking about the solution that you came up with and kind of the steps that you took along in that solution. You're going to be writing notes in the author's notes section or presenter's notes section that would kind of talk about what you would be saying for each of those slides. So it's not like you're just presenting a slides with a whole bunch of text. It is a part of a quote-unquote presentation, but that's going to be your final submission for this project, this Devils project. And like I said, you're going to be working on different aspects throughout the week. So as we teach you a topic, we want you to apply that to your Devils project and hopefully get experience identifying and solving a particular problem. Any other questions?
We have a few questions.
Sure.
Someone's asking, what was one of your biggest challenges in your overall experience as an engineer?
Well, I'm going to focus mostly on undergrad, so that we're kind of all relating. I could talk a little bit about grad school as well if you want, but in undergrad there's just a lot of new information that you're learning, and at times it can really be an overload. And so really trying to manage time, especially for me, it was right out of high school. Some of you are coming back after doing bits of career, which has its own challenges. But for me, coming right out of high school, trying to ramp up to a college level engineering degree program, it just took a little time. There were definitely some classes that I loved. I loved my fluid mechanics classes, for instance, and that's why I'm an aerospace engineer today. There were classes I didn't like so much that I really just had to put effort in and do it anyway and kind of get through. So the classes are a big struggle. I would say college was one of the best times that you're going to go through. You get to know people really well. The people in your classes, you're kind of like a band of brothers working your way through these hard topics together. And you make a lot of great friends. You have a lot of great experiences, but the classes are challenging. It's hard, but in engineering, it's rewarding as well. You learn a lot of new tools that you can solve much more complicated problems. As far as if we're talking about grad school, the way I like to describe the difference between undergrad, master's, and PhD is, undergrad is really about learning things that we've known for a long time, hundreds of years, maybe even thousands of years. So you're really just learning what we've already known, and it's pretty set knowledge. Like there's not a whole lot new with that. A master's degree is kind of like applying that knowledge to a new problem. So it's not necessarily generating new knowledge, but it's applying it in new ways, which has its own challenges. Thinking of a new problem as well as applying those skills in a new way, which as Ali said is really an important skill. And so you can gain a lot of knowledge and do a lot with a master's degree. As far as a PhD is like generating new knowledge, and so that is really what I think is the most difficult part. You're learning things that nobody's ever learned before. You're understanding things in a new way that nobody's really understood before. And really, to get a PhD, the challenge is convincing others that you've actually beat your head against that problem enough to learn something new. And so, there's a challenge associated with learning each of those levels, right? So in undergrad, the challenge is just absorbing all that information and then thinking of ways that you can, apply it to different situations. In the master's degree, it's identifying that new problem and approaching it in a different way. In a PhD, the challenge is, really just finding that niche that you can learn something new about that nobody else has learned before. And I think really the most awesome thing about engineering is you have all of that as part of your discipline. You get the opportunity to solve problems that are worth solving, and you get the opportunity to be creative while you're using those math and science skills. And so, that's a great question.
Kind of as a follow-up to that, somebody is saying, they've heard from industry that sometimes what we learn in academia is not the most helpful and won't necessarily be directly relevant. Can you sort of speak to that and how we can bridge that gap a little more?
Yeah, so like I said, ultimately, the skills that you learn are important. The applications of those skills may not be directly the same. So for instance, if I'm teaching my thermal fluids class, I'm going to give you a homework set, and I know the answers to that homework set. Are you ever going to be given a homework set in industry? No. Are you going to be expected to apply those concepts to a problem that you face? Yes. You know, as we progress in technology, a lot of engineering has gone more the computer realm. You use computer simulations to solve very complex problems. But if you don't understand the numbers that that computer is throwing out at you, you're not going to be able to make informed design decisions based on that, and you're not going to be able to even maybe develop some of those tools, which engineers might have to do. So yes, the framework is important. It's something that you need to be able to have the foundation to build upon. Will you be doing exactly the same things? No. Will you be learning a lot once you get into your field and, you know, get into your job, exactly how to apply those skills to best meet the needs of your company? Of course, you're going to be learning a lot. But that's part of the educational experience as well. You know, how to learn as you go, the continuous learning that, you know, we want. And that's actually something that's assessed by a program level. So if you're in an accredited program, one of the things they want to see is that students have identified or demonstrated the ability to be lifelong learners. And so we hope that you gain that experience. So even in this class, so say that we look at this introduction to engineering, we're going to teach you things like CAD, but we're not going to go into a whole lot of detail. A lifelong learner is going to take that information and, you know, maybe explore even more what you can do with it and use it in different ways beyond what we necessarily, you know, present in this class to solve whatever problems they might need. I can say from my own experience, so I didn't necessarily work in industry. I went directly into the PhD program, but I graduated with my bachelor's degree in mechanical engineering. Okay, I had a broad background in a lot of different subfields, so I had a circuits class. But in my PhD program, I had to use high voltage transformers for the particular application that I was working on. So I had to learn about, you know, high power designs that I'd never learned in a class before, but my background prepared me to learn that information that I needed to know. Same thing, I had some basic programming, but I was doing a simulation in my PhD program, so I had to learn a whole new programming language. I had to learn that by myself. It wasn't part of a class. So I had to apply the skills that I learned in my undergrad in new ways so that I could tackle the problems that I really wanted to tackle.
Yeah, that kind of, I think, also answers the, will the FSC 100 ASU certificate help me in future for getting a job?
So the certificate itself, if you're talking about just the certificate, you're going to learn skills if you participate in the course. We're going to be doing the e-portfolios. You're going to be tracking your skills. Whether you or not you have the certificate, you're going to have that, so you could apply that. The certificate just says, okay, the real people have assessed your work, and it's more than just me saying I did a good job. It's somebody else also saying I did a good job, which has some value. Where it has even more value is if you're starting to go into a degree program. So now if you actually get ASU credit at the end and then use that as part of your degree program, now you're going to learn a whole bunch more skills, get a degree, get that big piece of paper that's going to then allow you open up doors to get a job within engineering, and that definitely has a lot of value. As far as individual skills, you can get those skills whether or not you have a certificate, or whether you're just kind of going in the class and are actively participating. But if you have any inclination in pursuing an engineering degree, especially at ASU, consider ID verifying and then getting course credit for this, because we are doing a lot of the same things that we're doing in our introduction to engineering class on the ASU campus.
What's your opinion on being an engineering student and having a part-time job, and how to balance that with keeping a good academic performance?
Yeah, school is a full-time job, so just be aware of that. So if you're going to have another job on top of that, that's extra income, yes, which may be needed to progress through your degree. But if you can get away with just having one full-time job, just being a student, that's obviously the best. I think there's value in work experience. You learn a lot just in managing your time and being able to show that you are gainfully employed and willing to work your way through college. I had some work study type jobs when I was in undergrad as well. It's a necessity. I would make sure that you don't have two full-time jobs. So for instance, I would, if at all possible, if you could not do work full-time and studying full-time, that would definitely help you. If you do have to work full-time, it's just going to take you longer. Okay, so you're probably going to have to take less classes. You're going to have to work through your program a little bit longer. It's just kind of the way it is. Maybe if you're really, really motivated, you can do it, but it's hard. I have 4 kids, wife at home, spending time with them, trying to work and trying to take classes. It would be a lot. And so you just got to know yourself, know your limits. We don't want you to get burned out at school. We want to make sure that you're not just trying to get through, but you're actually learning the materials and applying them in a way that is valuable to you. But there are useful skills that you can learn from having a job, especially if it's one that's applicable to engineering, and you can start applying some of the skills that you're learning in the class to that job that you're working on now, and then that way you can show the future employer what you've done. But oftentimes, as engineers, it's a lot of work already. The time to get a lot of the experience often happens in the summer with summer internships, or for instance, in my case, my background, I did research experiences for undergrads, REUs, because I wanted to get more on the academic side, the research side. So I did a lot of that stuff over the summer rather than during the school year. But I did have some part-time jobs, typically, less than 10 hours a week. And I tried to keep those skills relevant to what I was wanting to do.
All right. We have a student from India who, this is a similar question to one we've had before, but he's doing their bachelor's in mechanical. And so is this course good for them?
Yeah, again, everybody in this course has a different background. You're bringing different skills to the table. What we want to do is we want to help you focus those skills and maybe use them in new ways, or maybe help you think creatively of how you can leverage those skills to solve real problems. As engineers, just like many of you were saying on the discussion board of what is engineering, a lot of it has to do with problem solving, being able to identify those things that are worth solving, and then applying your background, your skills that you have to solve that problem. So as an engineering student, you're gaining new skills every year. Every class that you're taking, you're gaining new skills. Even as someone who's not, taking classes in engineering, you're coming at the problem or coming at a situation with different perspectives. And those perspectives are important, they're unique, and they will help you identify problems worth solving, as well as maybe help you understand what a good solution might look like. So as you learn new skills, you might be able to solve different kinds of problems. But in the end, this class is an introduction to engineering class. We're trying to help you focus on the engineering design process, how to approach problems, and hopefully it's useful for you to help solve problems. Depending on what your classes look like in your first year, this could be more of a project-based class that you might not have seen in your other school. So we want to make sure this is relevant projects. So the Devil's Project, our larger disaster relief project, which is going to be coming up in the second half of the class, the last 10 weeks of the class. We want you to apply these skills in a project-based course that's, these problems are open-ended. So if you've never done anything like that before, this could be an awesome experience to try out some of those skills. And we encourage you to, like I said, bring in your background into this class. We want to learn from you and how you approach problems, or how you've identified problems in your own life. Because ultimately, I can solve a problem for myself, but where I can make a huge impact is when I can solve problems for lots of other people. Solve problems that they have. And part of that's empathy, right? Empathy is an important part of human-centered design, which we're going to talk about. Being able to empathize with somebody else's problem so that you can solve it in a way that they would actually want to use. And so when we're talking about the entrepreneurial mindset, when we're talking about human-centered design, these are topics that you don't always get in some of your engineering classes, but we think are important if you're going to work in engineering. And so hopefully there's some new topics or some new tools that you can get involved with and learn.
Will there be any group assignments during the course?
So not formal group assignments where you're turning in something as a group. In a MOOC environment, groups get really crazy really fast. And for any of you who have done that before, it's crazy. We do have an online course through the electrical engineering program at ASU. So an all online electrical engineering degree where we do a lot more of that group work, but that's not a MOOC environment. That's where you're actually registered for courses, and it's somewhat more manageable. That being said, we want you to learn from each other. So in these discussion boards, we really encourage you to collaborate, to bounce ideas off of each other, to learn from each other. We want you to, get some of that experience with group work, but you don't have any assignments that are going to be group deliverables.
Is FSC 100 just the first class in a series of upcoming engineering courses, or is this kind of it for now?
Yeah, so this class is part of the Global Freshman Academy. So our goal is to get most, not all, of the first-year courses in engineering or in ASU really up in this MOOC environment. As far as second, third, fourth year, I don't know of any long-term plans. That's above my pay grade. But this class will hopefully prepare you for any of those classes that you might want to take. Like I said, ASU does offer an all-online electrical engineering degree. So if you want to take sophomore, junior, senior level classes at ASU, you can do that online program and jump in there. Most of those higher level classes, though, especially in some disciplines like mechanical engineering, aerospace engineering, it's really hard to do in an online, the labs portion, the hands-on portion in an online environment. There's not many programs out there that even attempt that. So you're going to have to probably go to a school to get some of those higher level classes, like actually on campus. We're out of questions. So there's a few more questions from the original discussion board that we can talk about. So Tony Jr. asked, what essential mindset does an engineer need, and how can we achieve those skills? Well, you're in the right class if that's what you're thinking about. We want you thinking like an engineer. We want you approaching problems like an engineer. There's a couple different mindsets that we talk about. One is a human-centered design mindset. So we want you thinking, not only am I designing for humans, but I am a human as I'm designing. And so I want to bring in those empathetic experiences. I want you to bring in those kinds of problem-solving ideas into this class. The other big mindset that we talk about, and we have a full lecture video that I recorded on this, is the entrepreneurial mindset. As I say in the video, it's not about creating a company. It's really about approaching problems that people actually want solved. While this is applicable not just to engineering, it's applicable across a variety of different fields. It becomes really powerful when you couple it with engineering skills. So a mindset just kind of gives you the direction of where you want to go. The engineering skills give you the oomph, the boost to solve problems, right? So the mindset kind of points you in a direction. The engineering skills allow you to actually solve that problem. And so as far as how we achieve those skills, again, in this class, we're going to be walking you through a lot of different skills that are very useful and beneficial. So keep taking the class, keep watching the videos, keep doing all the activities, all the assignments, and you'll be picking up a lot of these different tools that you'll need. And then our other question that we have, the last question that we have on this discussion board is, as an engineer, not sure what toll knowledge is. So if you're on, you can kind of clarify that in the chat. But is the toll knowledge relevant or the domain knowledge? And I think what the idea of this question is it important to get the overview and really understand the overview, or is it really important to get the domain specific skills? And I would say yes to both. It's really important to understand why you're learning the domain specific skills that you're learning in later classes. Oftentimes, you take your calculus class, your differential equations class, your chemistry class, and it's so much just pure, where am I applying this, that you lose focus on, why am I learning this in the first place? What things could I actually use this on that would make any difference? How can I use it to solve problems more than just problems from the back of the textbook? And I think as you go through your engineering career, as you learn more skills, you see where these calculus, differential equations, chemistry, physics, those kinds of things might play a role in helping you learn the next topic, which is more directly relevant. So I think in this class, we focus mostly on the overall engineering skills, because one, we don't want to get too specific into a domain that it's not relevant to a lot of people. So no matter what your engineering interests are, we want this to be a relevant class for you, and that you can apply these topics to. As you progress through, that's when you're going to be learning those specific skills to solve the specific kinds of problems that you want to solve. And that's where the domain specific knowledge comes into play. I found in my career, having the background, the overall background from a bachelor's degree was transferable in a lot of different places. Again, that knowledge that we've known for a while, that you can apply in a wide range of things. I found that as I went higher up, master's, PhD, I was really starting to focus in on a certain specific knowledge. Or, if you go into industry, you start focusing on a specific problem that you're trying to solve. And that's also important as you're kind of progressing within your career. So early on, I think it's important to have a broad perspective. As you figure out what you want to do, the kinds of problems you want to solve, that's when you start narrowing in and really focusing on those specific aspects that will help you solve the problems that you're interested in.
Can the students submit e-portfolio assignments without including FSC 100X in the portfolio domain?
Can you submit it? Yes. It just makes it a little bit easier for us to know that this is specifically for this course. So can you submit? Yes. Ultimately, all you're doing is submitting links, but it kind of helps us out if you are able to include that as part of your domain name. I'm guessing I'm getting this question because some of you have already created your domains and didn't include that, and you're wondering if I have to do it again. So, can you submit? Yes.
I don't have anything else.
All right. I think we're starting to run out of questions. So we have still about 17 minutes left. If you have any questions, be sure to post them on the chat board. We'd be happy to answer those. Again, we're really excited to have you in this class. This is kind of a new thing for us. Like I said, I've helped develop one other online class, other introduction to engineering class for our online electrical engineering degree. This is a whole new experience doing it in a MOOC environment. It's really been amazing to see the responses that we've been getting. We really appreciate you signing up for this course and going through this with us. As you're going through, we will also be learning from you as far as what we can do to improve the course. And so if there's any way that we can help out, we can't necessarily guarantee that we'll be able to improve it in the future. There's some limitations. We, as engineers, design under constraints, but we do want to make this experience as good as possible. So we appreciate you coming through this. One thing I would say, and we kind of mentioned this at the beginning, as you're going into the Devil's Project, and really any of the discussion boards, we really encourage you to bounce ideas off other students. So we're going to be around. We're kind of going to jump in on discussions. We probably won't hit every single discussion thread. But I encourage you to do more than just one-word answers. Ask follow-up questions of your fellow students. Pose questions to those discussion boards as you see relevant. And then ultimately, we want you to be talking things out amongst each other. You're going to view all these different topics a little bit differently than your classmates. Sometimes just another perspective, another point of view, another way of describing something is very beneficial. And so we really encourage you in those discussion boards, talk with one another, actually go back and forth a little bit. And we're here to kind of chime in as our own reference. So again, if we ask questions, both the person that posted the initial response is welcome to respond, but we also welcome other responses, and that might provide some clarity on some of these problems as well. Still?
Still.
All right. So maybe we'll talk a little bit about what the future of this course is, or kind of where we'll be heading in this course. So in the next few weeks, we have basically the first few steps of the engineering design process. So identifying problems, understanding requirements, criteria, basically defining what your problem has to do and what will make for a successful design. The keys here: make sure you don't focus on a specific solution, but you're focusing on the problem. As soon as you start focusing on a solution, a way of solving the problem in your problem statement, you've already basically stopped your innovation process. You've determined what your design is going to do and how it's going to do it. And really, there's no innovation after that point. So I really encourage you, keep an open mind. Don't allow yourself to be creative, because that's the fun part, I think, of the engineering design process, and hopefully you'll find it fun too. But allow yourself to think of problems in different ways, because that's where we get really innovative solutions, and especially problems that you are facing. If you've ever thought of a problem and you've said, I wish somebody would do something about it, I'm hoping that by taking this class, you're going to start thinking along the lines of, well, why can't I do something about that and solve that problem? And it could be in simple ways, but maybe you can solve a problem that a lot of other people have, and you can basically start your own business, or maybe you can develop a product that could actually meet a lot of other people's needs. After that, we're going to start learning some new skills. So if I real quickly jump in here. So, we're going to be talking about ways of making decisions in week 3. So after you've generated a whole bunch of awesome ideas, ones that solve the problem, we want to give you tools that will help you, do the engineering design process better. And, one of the biggest things is being able to make decisions. And, whether that's choosing between 2 different good options, or 2 different homes, 2 different cars, 2 different cell phones, whatever it might be, anything that has a lot of different criteria that you're having to judge between, and they solve the problem in slightly different ways, we're going to be teaching you tools that will help you make that decision. And like I said before, this is applicable whether you're talking about politics, lawyer career, patent law, all these things. These skills are transferable, and hopefully you realize that as well. So sometimes they're called trade studies, but comparing 2 different design options and picking which one is the best. We'll talk about some tools that might be useful for that. In week 4, we have kind of a partnership with Autodesk, and so we're going to be learning a CAD program called Fusion 360. We had a few questions about, do I have to install it? You don't have to. We're only going to be teaching Fusion 360 just because that's what we've developed our course around. But there are other online CAD softwares. If you're not able to actually download those, there's some great tutorials online about that. CAD is just a way of helping us visualize a solution that you've come up with. Fusion 360 has a lot of useful tools that maybe some of these other CAD programs don't, but ultimately all we're getting at, even if you don't use any CAD program in this class, ultimately what we're doing is we're trying to expose you to a tool. And so hopefully you find it useful. Hopefully you find it interesting, and maybe you want to explore that a little bit more. But week 4 is really about that. Week 5 is technical communication. So how do we communicate our designs effectively? Whether that's a report, a presentation, a memo. There's all kinds of ways that we as engineers need to communicate with one another so that we can actually share our design with others. And so we're going to get our first practice with that in week 5. Week 6, that's going to be a fun. That's where we start looking at our big projects. Okay, so week 6, there's a lot of information starting to remind you about the engineering design process and how to approach bigger problems where there's multiple different subsystems that have to work together, and you're going to be designing a lot of different subsystems there. That's really where we're going to hone in on more specific skills, as well as be able to apply the design process to something bigger than just a single concept or a single element of a product. So this particular design is going to have multiple subsystems that you're going to have to deal with or work with, make solutions for, and they're all going to have to come together in some way. And so we're really excited about that. So hopefully you get excited about that as well. So that's coming up in week 6. Everything after that, we'll get to eventually, but I wanted to at least outline the first few weeks, kind of see what you're getting into. And like I said, this is what we hope a fun course. There's a lot of really useful resources. For instance, the day in the life videos. We hope that you're able to see how these skills are being used by real practicing engineers, so you can see what you might be doing later on in your career. So I do recommend looking at those day in the life videos. They're really interesting as a kind of wrap up to that unit, talking about how you might be using those skills.
Back to using Fusion 360, we have a question about using SketchUp instead. Is that going to be useful for the course, and what might be a drawback compared to using Autodesk Fusion 360? Yeah,
so SketchUp, it's another free. That one's browser-based, or the link that we gave you is browser-based, so you don't have to actually download anything. But there are limitations. It doesn't do the nice rendering like the Fusion 360 does. There's certain features like the sculpting that you're not going to be able to do in the SketchUp. You're still going to be able to do the basic processes. So, for instance, drawing out a 2-dimensional sketch and then extruding that, you're still going to be able to do that. You can still do a lot of the things. It's just you can't do quite everything. Again, any CAD program, whether we're talking about Tinkercad, SketchUp, Fusion 360, we're just trying to represent ideas. So whatever the most effective way of doing that is for you, do that. We never require CAD. We recommend it in some situations. If you absolutely can't get any CAD program to work, then hand sketches or other models are perfectly acceptable. So we'll be talking more about modeling, different ways of modeling. We don't want access or not access to a specific technology to hinder you. We want you to use that technology as a resource, a tool to help you further along. I would say SketchUp still will teach you the basics of CAD, which is an important skill. So whether you want to create something that you can 3D print, or eventually laser cut maybe some design, these are skills that will require you to use CAD to use those specific tools. So if you have access to those at some point in your career, you'll have the foundation to be able to move into those areas. But again, we don't want being able to access or download a specific technology to limit you from the learning that we want to get from this class. And really the learning that we want you to get out is, how do we represent something in a 3-dimensional object? And that could be with CAD, it could be with hand sketches, it could be with physical models. There's all kinds of ways of representing. We just think CAD is one of those cool factors that you can say that you learned, and a skill that might be useful. So I hope that answered your question. All right. So yeah, we're running short on time. We have about 5 more minutes left. Like I said, if there's any questions, go ahead and post them to the chat room. We'd be happy to talk more about that. we hope that you're enjoying the course. We've seen a lot of really good comments. The paper building challenge, it seems like a lot of you are having a lot of fun with that. We continue to want to do some of those hands-on activities. And so as we go through, you will continue to do challenges. They're just going to be based more on the project itself. Not all of them are building either, so it's not about necessarily cutting things or whatever. We do have online simulation tools that we're going to be showing you ways of analyzing different systems for a particular design purpose. But we do want you testing things out. We want you using those skills that you used in the hands-on, building things challenges as a part of this larger design as well. I think we've answered all the questions. I think that this has been a pretty good time. So again, thank you for joining us for this live session. If you enjoyed this, then say so. Let us know what experience you had with it, and we can do more if needed, if you found this useful. If not, we'll continue to be active on the discussion boards, hopefully answering your questions there. If you run into any issues, don't forget at the beginning of every single week, there's a week discussion board where you can post any questions for that week. Please limit the questions to the appropriate week. So for instance, don't put anything more in the week 1 question discussion board because we're now in week 2. So once we pass a week, it's going to start, we're not going to actively monitor it anymore, and your question may get missed. So start posting it in that new week. And again, we'll try and stay on top of that, and we'll try to answer those as quickly as possible. Again, thank you for joining us in this live session. Thank you for joining us in the course. We're so excited to have you as a part of this experience with us. And like I said, hopefully you're learning some valuable skills that you're going to be able to transfer to solve the problems that you want to do. And as the course title says, we want you to imagine, design, and engineer solutions to the problems that you're interested in. So again, thanks for watching. Have a great day. Enjoy the eclipse. Bye.